Hello, 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 hello. You're listening to H. Davis, and this is my first ever episode with the Alternate Network, or the new group that was formed from the Moderate Entertain Men. So I've decided that because I've got a lot of hatred, a lot of anger inside me, and I've got a lot of things that I need to say and want to say, so I'm going to say them, and this is going to be the podcast of pain. Or the half hour of hatred, you decide. It probably won't be half an hour though. So, I've got two main topics today. It's the first topic is terrorism, in light of the attacks that happened in Woolwich, or the attack, sorry. And the second is family, because I've had a lot of things going on in my family recently due to the death of my granddad, and I'll go more into that later. But first, obviously, so terrorism. So I believe terrorism is completely wrong, no matter what the circumstances, whether it's by British people, whether it's by Africans, whether it's by Muslims, whether it's by Hindus, whether it's by Sikhs, Christians, Buddhas, whatever. I don't care. Terrorism is wrong. And the things that have happened in Woolwich are absolutely disgusting. A British soldier who fought for the good of the country under Her Majesty's service has been killed in his own country, and I think that is disgraceful. Drummer Lee Rigby has been on a tour of Afghanistan, and he was a father and a husband, and he comes home, and his family are going to be absolutely relieved that he's come back fine, until two who are believed radical Muslims, extremists, decide that it is in their best interest, in their religion's best interest, to murder a soldier outside the Woolwich barracks. We must fight them as they fight us. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. That's what one of them is reported to have said. But his family must have been relieved that he'd come home, and then to have this tragedy forced upon them. It's shattering for them. It must be shattering. The fact that a soldier has come back and been killed. And I think it's disgraceful. And the fact that it was in his own country makes it 10 times worse. And obviously, because you've got the extremist Muslims groups, group that's happened, you've obviously got the right-wing groups as well, like the EDL, that are now, they've grabbed the chance for a kick-off, basically. But in these circumstances, you can see where the EDL are coming from. It's because England is all in all a Christian country, but we accept, we're diverse, we have cultural diversity. Obviously, if the EDL had their way, then we'd all be white British, but that's another matter. But the EDL have grabbed the chance to attack the extremist Muslims, and not just the extremist Muslims. They've attacked the mosques as well of just normal Muslim communities. Now that's wrong, and it's not just the EDL; it's other right-wing groups and just individuals and stuff. I want to point that out, but it's wrong that they're now targeting all Muslims, because two men's actions can't be held accountable for the whole Muslim community in Britain. Now that's wrong. But the extremist Muslim groups who want to shove their religion down everybody's throat, you can sort of see why the EDL are doing what they're doing. I don't say the EDL are right. I don't agree with the EDL, but I can see their point of view. So. Right, I'll move on to family, and it'll all interweave nicely. Okay. Basically, my granddad died on Tuesday. He's my stepfather's father, so he's sort of my step-granddad, but I've always seen him as a granddad, and he's always seen me as a grandchild. It was tragic, but it wasn't a surprise. It was expected. He'd been ill for a very long time. He had several types of cancer, and he had a tumour on his brain, but he was 84, I believe. So it wasn't a surprise, which is easier, but it was tragic. It was tragic. Well, I wouldn't say tragic, but because, everyone has to die. But it was sad. It was very sad. He lived in the Isle of Wight. He had done for all most of his life, and when he was in the army. But now his wife, my stepfather's stepmother, this is where it gets complicated, because my stepfather's mother died when he was young, and his father remarried. So my stepfather's stepmother my granddad's wife, and her son, so my granddad's stepson, has decided that my stepfather's sister, my granddad's firstborn daughter, well, firstborn child, will not be allowed to the funeral because of something that happened a very long time ago. But they've become friends again before he died. Dawn is her name. Came back in full contact with my granddad before all of this happened, and they were quite happy to, let water pass under the bridge. But the family have decided that they're going to kick up a fuss about it, which is wrong, again. Why should they have the right to tell my granddad's first daughter that she's not allowed to her own father's funeral, when, to be fair, they are only family by law, whereas these people are family by blood. They are biological family. And so where does the idea that they're allowed to say these things come into the equation? It doesn't. It doesn't come into the equation. They should not be allowed to tell people who can't and who can come to the funeral. A funeral is a place to pay your last respects to the people you love, and it shouldn't be invite only or other such things. And I think it's disgraceful. And then sort of linking back, I don't think you'd see Drummer Lee Rigby's family doing this, would you? Drummer Lee Rigby's family are just absolutely distraught, and they would be, they'd be quite happy for anyone to come to the funeral, whether you've had a fallout or not. You do not see them kicking up a fuss, unless they do and I'm completely mistaken. But somehow I doubt it, because it's wrong. When there are young people dying like Drummer Lee Rigby, and they are having less time, but so it's wrong. And this is obviously this whole charade of a funeral process is ridiculous. They've said they're not having a wake, and a lot of his old firefighting, because he was in the fire brigade for 30 odd years, 25 of those as an active fireman. A lot of his old fire friends are going to be there. A lot of my stepfather's school friends are going to be there, because they still call him Mr. Jeffries. They never actually got around to calling him his actual name. They always referred to him as Mr. Jeffries, because it was a sign of respect, and they are going to want to pay their respects to my granddad at the funeral. But the stepmother and her son have decided that there isn't going to be a wake, which a wake is a place that you go to after a funeral to pay sort of tribute to them. You have maybe, obviously, often brandy is served, or you can have a couple of bits to eat after the funeral, and you socialise and you swap stories about their lives, and because obviously a church or wherever the funeral's being held isn't a place for socialising, so you go to maybe a pub or a function room somewhere, and you socialise there, you swap stories, you say how sad, and a decent funeral will have a wake, because that's just the done thing. But they've decided that they're not going to be having a wake, and I think they're just out to cause trouble. That's what they're doing. She just wants his money, and he will follow Mummy wherever she goes. So, and just this whole topic makes me very angry. Both the topics I've discussed today really do make me rather angry. To think that people think they have a right to decide the important things in life, like whether a young soldier lives or dies, or whether a man's daughter can go to her own father's funeral. I think that's disgraceful. So I just want to add in another topic, just quickly here. Stereotyping and prejudice. As you've probably noticed, I've got a southern accent. I'm Britain, that is, not America. I haven't got a southern American accent. But I've got a very, you could deem it posh accent. I'm not posh. If you get to know me, I'm actually a normal person. But I live in Stoke-on-Trent, and sometimes when people meet me, I get stereotyped as posh, arrogant, stuck-up, and that sort of thing. So stereotyping does work both ways, and it's wrong that I should be stereotyped as arrogant just because sometimes I can come across as a bit dismissive or too busy. But just because I'm, say, too busy to do something at that very moment doesn't mean that I'm not going to do it or I don't want to do it. So yeah, but that's going into a whole different kettle of fish. But I just wanted to point that out in this podcast. Podcast of pain. So yeah, but stereotyping works both ways, and remember that it's not just the minorities that can receive prejudice. It's also the majorities and that sort of things. So yes, I'm going to end this now. It's been about 11 minutes, so hope you haven't got too bored, and I hope you enjoyed my little rant, my podcast of pain. Please do tune in next time. We'll probably work out a schedule, and that'll be posted. Meanwhile, subscribe to the Alternate Network. You can find our Facebook and Twitter links on our page. Have a lovely day, or days, or night, maybe. Goodbye.